Well, a school district in Missouri wants to start using corporal punishment to deal with unruly kids because, you know, kids are monsters, right? Right? Am I right? Am I right? Well, in fact...
I'll be here all week. Anyone here from out of town? Am I right? Am I right?
Is this thing on?
Comply.
So spanking kids is a new policy in Missouri.
Right. So, in fact, the state has allowed this. It never went away, but more school districts are starting to adopt this. In fact, schools around the U.S., though, are reporting behavioral problems since the pandemic, basically behavior problems galore. In July, the National Center for Educational Statistics released a study showing that 87% of schools report that the pandemic negatively impacted socio-emotional development, and 83% said that students' behavior development was also stunted. So here are the specific incidents of behavior issues that are being reported in public schools. Classroom disruptions from student misconduct, 56%. Acts of disrespect towards teacher and staff, 48%. Rowdiness outside of the classroom, 49%. These are increases in this behavior. And prohibited use of electronic devices, 42%, which I find is interesting, right? Because we made them go to school on their screens, and now we're saying get off your screens for school. And the human brain doesn't do that so easily. Now, in response, schools are asking for more support staff for mental health, student socio-emotional development, and classroom training. They're not going to get that, right? No. Budget cuts and all. The U.S. doesn't spend money on education, spends it on war. So put that investment out of your head. But then what do? Well, let's beat it out of the little shits, right? This is what one school district in Missouri said they're going to do because parents were concerned about behavior problems. I'm sorry, the audio is a little tinny on this video, but listen to how this administrator justifies this.
One of the suggestions that came out was concerns about student discipline, and so we reacted by implementing several different strategies, corporal punishment being one of them.
Dr. Johnson says this change will give principals one more disciplinary option before students receive more serious punishments such as suspensions. Administrators say it would be the last resort for parents and faculty members if other means of discipline do not work.
Okay, last resort, right? So I went to the school board website to see how this would be implemented because it's new in the year 2022. We're deciding to start spanking, right? So this school district in Missouri says, for the purposes of this policy, corporal punishment is the use of physical force as a method of correcting student behavior. Put a pin on that. Corporal punishment as a measure of correction or of maintaining discipline and order in schools is permitted. However, it shall be used only when all other alternative means of discipline have failed, and then only in reasonable form and upon the recommendation of the principal. It should never be inflicted in the presence of other students. So at least you're not humiliating them by hitting them in front of other people. Okay.
Oh, they get to go to a room.
Yeah, this is my question, right?
To the spanking room?
Yeah.
So wait a minute.
My grandma had a crying room. You go to the crying room.
So you have to opt into this. So parents sign up for this.
So it's consent.
Right. So the parents consented to this. We're not going to do it in front of students. We have to go to the spanking room. And like your sister pointed out, we were talking about this before the show. She's like, did they have like a list of approved beating implements that are on a wall? Like there's
like
a paddle.
Strap.
You can pick which one you want.
Belt.
Like they'd say, go to the principal's office, and you would go to the principal's office and you'd get 3 whacks with a paddle there. Like they had a paddle that was specifically for that, and you would go to the principal's office and he did it.
Wow.
Did that happen to you?
I did get it once, yes.
Oh, Philip.
I got it once. I got it once too.
Wow.
You both got hit by an administrator?
Now my 6th grade or 5th grade teacher, Mr. Cook, he actually spanked me for doing something in class. And the person that I was messing with, just playing with, made me put my hands on that kid's desk and look him in the face when he gave me 3 whacks.
Oh my God.
And look how screwed up you are as a result of it.
Sorry for you. I know.
You know?
It's part of why I have the beard.
I mean, think about this. My dad told me this story. He went to Catholic school. He, in 19.
Oh yeah, they like beating those
1940s or whatever, early 1940s, 1950s, and he would get whacked by the nuns would whack the crap out of his hands, and that happened all the time. That's why then he vowed he would never hit his children. Like that was like, no.
And so, we were sort of talking about this over dinner, and it's not to joke about, but a little bit. We're like, is there a wall where you get your own switch, or like, okay, hands on the desk, and then, in a spanking room, I don't know. So further about this school's policy, it says corporal punishment shall be administered only by certified personnel. So there'll be certified spankers, right?
What?
You can't just, like, if someone really I have a student that really pisses me off and I want to be the one to hit him, if you're not certified, so there's going to be, I guess, certification classes.
What creep is going to sign up for that job? Can you imagine the perverts that are going to be?
I'm a third grade teacher and I'm a certified spanker.
Hey, what do you do for a living? Yeah, I'm the one that.
And I don't just do it in school.
I spank the 5th grade girls. That's my job. My name is Beavis, and these are the perverts that are going to sign up for this job, like these job postings.
Okay,
don't you think? Like that's your job. You have to be certified. Like that's the guy.
Let's go back to the rules.
Well, no, and will they?
Go ahead. Your question first.
Will they pull from the school, or will they be like volunteers that come in? Like, hey, we got a spanking we need done. All right, I'm on my way.
Or, here's the way I see it. It's probably going to be a school, somebody who's already currently working at the school who then gets extra hours. You know how they'll be like the person who then also does after school stuff to make a few extra hours, a few extra bucks as a teacher, right? They'll do like the after school activities or something like that, and they hang out after school.
Or could let's say the secretary, do it because she wants to have an extra certification. I don't know. Let's go back to the rules.
Just don't put her address out there.
It says, when it becomes necessary, okay, I take issue with this part of it ever becoming necessary, but let's keep going. To use corporal punishment, it shall be administered so that there can be no chance of bodily injury or harm. So you have to just, like if you think of a person as a video game avatar and they've got like a lifeline, like you can't really go down their lifeline, right? Striking a student on the head.
Mental though.
Yes, striking a student on the head or the face is not permitted. So then, but
that leaves back,
right?
Yeah, back, upper neck, like that's all on the table.
On your ass, neck.
Okay.
Elbows.
Elbows. Yeah. So this is being used, they say, as a measure of correction. Only experts agree that physical punishment does not act as a deterrent. In fact, spanking causes more behavioral problems. Many students have shown that physical punishment, including spanking, hitting, and other means of causing pain, can lead to aggression, antisocial behavior, physical injury, and mental health problems for children. It's also worth noting that spanking is highly correlated with lower grades. So schools are the last places you would think that want to do something. Go ahead and look at this study. This is just one of many. I could talk a blue streak about how spanking is harmful for children. That's not the purpose of this segment. I think that we can all agree that the pandemic has hurt children unnecessarily. We could have enacted means-based protection, such as protecting the elderly or the immunocompromised. We chose not to do that. We had data from the beginning that showed that children were not at risk of COVID. So we also know that children are meant to play with others, not on screens. Humans are meant to learn as apprentices, not from books or Zoom classes. So we took them out of environments that were good for them. And now we're putting them back. They can't figure out how to behave, right? And so we should hit them. We also know that each year lost of education is correlated with lower life expectancy. This is from a study called The Effect of Educational Attainment on Adult Mortality in the United States. So people who have lower levels of education have higher rates of mortality. This has been duplicated over and over again.
Someone in their chat just says, I used to beat my boys and now they're Navy SEALs. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I have no judgment on this, but I do have a lot of data, right? So again, so we harmed them by taking them out of school. We cost them years of their lives. And in some cases, because some of them lost education, they will not give back. This will hurt the poorest children the hardest, right? And now because they can't behave, we can hit them, right? Because of choices that we made that impacted them negatively. So I just want to have a question.
Well,
when are we going to stop harming children?
Yeah, and they're not even taking into consideration. What if that kid's getting hit at home, then they're going to school, and the reason that they are acting out is because they're getting hit at home, and then they're getting hit at school. That's just like psychologically gonna just, I mean, even myself, I was spanked by my parents as a kid, and what did I do? I took it out on my brothers. Until I got to I think I was probably 19 or 20 before I started looking internally and was like, I stopped being a bully to my brothers. Like I took it out on them. And I think that that's what's going to happen with kids. Like, you know, and you're just backing that up with data is that if they're hit all the time, they're going to want to hit others.
Do you want to apologize to Philip right here and now?
Oh, I did. Okay. I took psilocybin and I wrote apology letters to my mom, my brothers. Like,
aw,
I'm good.
I mean, I think, so we shut people down for 2 years. We irreversibly damaged these children, right? We forced them into this like virtual learning experience. We forced them into masks. We forced them into vaccines. We did all of this shit to them, right? And I don't know. It's going to be, we're going to see maybe in 10, 15 years, the full data set from this generation of children and what it's done to them. It's incredibly troubling. Now we're going to, because of all the shit we did to them, now they're having social problems. Now they're having an anxiety. They're having depression. They're having all these other issues. Now they get to school and they act out speech issues. Now we're gonna smack them at school. Like nothing good comes from this. Nothing good comes from this.
Well, how much of this stuff, like every story that we hear, doesn't it feel like we are going backwards in so many things? Like we're talking about coal. We're talking about all this stuff. It's like we're going backwards instead of forward.
Yeah. You know, I read a book years ago called The Blessings of a Skinned Knee, and it talks about how when children act out, they're asking you to notice something. It acts almost as a Post-it, like something's wrong here, address this, whatever it is, right? Because bad behavior is almost always caused by powerlessness. So where are they feeling powerless, and where can you empower them in order to, the same is true of adults, the same is true of toddlers, right? And the book pointed out this old thing that like I know my grandma used to say is, oh, they just want attention. Like ignore them, they just want attention. And this author was like, give it to them then, right? Like why don't you then go to the root of the cause?
So like babies,
rather than like, oh, they just want attention, hit them or ignore them or whatever, right?
Or like babies, they cry for what, 3 reasons? They've got a soiled diaper, they're hungry, or they're tired, right? Yes. So hit them if they cry,
right? Like, that you teach them to, and
teach them what, that their dirty diaper is not something they should have, that they shouldn't be hungry, or that they shouldn't be tired,
right? Or if a child is acting out, they want your attention clearly, so give it to them. Figure out what it is they need, right? I think it's worth noting that on the international front, physical discipline is increasingly being viewed as a violation of children's human rights throughout the world. The United Nations Committee on the Rights of the Child issued a directive in 2006 calling physical punishment legalized violence against children that should be eliminated in all settings through legislative, administrative, social, and educational measures. Now, because in the United States in 1977, the Supreme Court ruled that corporal punishment is constitutional, just let's let that one sink in. It's up to the state, right? So this treaty by the United Nations that was issued in 2006 was supported by 192 countries. 2 countries don't support it. Can you guess what those are? It's the United States and Somalia. So when it comes to children's rights, we're right on par with Somalia.
Someone in the chat said, have you two gone woke? So let me just be clear about something. Going woke means you don't support hitting children. No, we're not woke. I don't support hitting kids. I don't support violence of any kind. So we
told you in the beginning of this show that we are peace. This is a podcast for peace. We don't want to kill anybody in any war.
Hit anybody.
And we don't want anybody, especially not getting hit by somebody who is like an administrator in school.
Like the ridiculousness of having a sanctioned spanker at a school to beat children after we fucked them up for 2 years because of what government did to these kids. Like, that's who should be spanked. If you want to have any kind of violence, maybe it should be directed to that, to the government, to these people who screwed these children up because of these draconian lockdowns and all of the crap that we did to them. This is not the response that we need, is to go around spanking children or hitting children in schools because now they have emotional problems and they've got all sorts of other problems because of what we did to them.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to get to, I think.
All right, Clark is speaking my language. He says, well, chores, just make them pull weeds. Yes. We do a lot of that around here.
So like as a just like a little thought experiment, if you can bear with me for a second here, but people have a tendency to like sort of like what's the word I'm looking for? Like fantasize about like kind of like glorify spanking as like, you know, they'll say things like, well, I spanked my kids and look how great they are now. Like, if it was actually effective, then the behavior would stop, would it not?
Yes.
Like, who's ever been spanked once and that was it? They're like, well, nope, I learned my lesson. I'm good. Yeah. It's the same thing that, you know, like there's been countless studies that show having the death penalty in a state does not act as a deterrent for murder.
Yes.
Right. Overwhelming.
So having all it made me do.
Yeah.
I was going to say, all it made me do was just hide what I was doing. I would like, okay, I got spanked for that, so now next time I won't get caught.
Yeah, I had the same thing. Yeah, and it made me lie to my parents to avoid it when,
Someone says, have them go out and chop wood and carry water. Yeah, I mean, this is what, there's been a number of studies that say, hey, you know, like literally getting like kids out like in like tougher environments, like kind of putting them through like a week-long sort of like camp where they're out with like other like, you know, away from devices, out in wilderness, like learning hard work and like, you know, talking through with people who've also had issues like this, right? Was like Outward Bound and those types of programs that have like shown amazing results. I was listening to a Navy SEAL talk about that, actually. That's why when you said Navy SEAL, he's like, you know, hitting does not work. He's like, but actually being out with other teens and people who've had issues and being out away from devices and like seeing like, okay, I can transform myself and here's an opportunity for me to, you know, become a better person and to learn away from that kind of corporal punishment. Anyway.
Sure. But again, you know, we're talking about the data around spanking, which is pretty incontrovertible. And then I can see people who have these like emotional connections to this type of discipline because of their history in their life. That is something completely different. We're talking about spanking in the educational setting. And how would you feel if someone who decided, again, you have to opt into it though, as a parent.
Paul Honor says, doing household chores is not punishment. Yes, you should all. That's another, but you know, that's a key. Everyone should be involved in the chores in the house, right?
Yes, but you can get extra as punishment too. Sure. Yeah. Okay, we're not going to talk anymore about our parenting philosophy, but we appreciate your comments.
And by the way, let's have a conversation here about woke. Like, what does it mean to be woke, right? So this phrase has been co-opted, I think. And
well, I think that the way they're implying is like, oh, you're being weak. You don't want, I don't know, like weak-minded.
I don't know.
In this sense.
So the way I see it, the way I've come to read this is anything that doesn't agree with the talking head, like the points that are being made by pundits is woke. So if they're on a particular side of things, you know, it's like it has to be this hard line sort of like right-wing philosophy. Otherwise, it's woke. So anything that is not
that's the thing. So if it's all, you're right. If it's right-wing, you're racist or homophobic or something. If it's left-wing, you're woke. So for the right calls anybody who doesn't agree with them 100% woke. The left calls anybody who doesn't agree with them racist or homophobic.
Right. So you're either racist or homophobic, or you're woke if the right calls you an insult. I get. Yeah.
So then why? So in order to not be woke, you have to be okay with hitting kids?
No, because you can see thousands of people here are like not in favor of hitting children. So that are they all woke then because they're not in favor of hitting kids? Like, I don't get that. Doesn't make any sense, right? What I'm arguing is that the people that screwed up our kids at government, like here's the thing. Noam Chomsky talks about this, right? There's these two lines that you're allowed to have conversations in our society. It's like the Fox News line and CNN. And like in between that is where you're allowed to have your disagreements.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, no, let's break those barriers. Let's go outside of those lines where, what about these governments that kept us literally locked down for 2 years, right? CNN won't tell you that, right? So we got to push beyond that stuff. We got to push outside of those boundaries and have a conversation about this. Instead, you're in this like little defined box about how you can have a conversation. I think just being woke means being awake. Just wake up, everyone. Wake up to what these governments are doing to us, these corrupt politicians.
And specifically what's happening to children. We also have an attendance problem, right? Since the pandemic, because kids were allowed to stay home and they feel anxiety about going back to school. With no wonder, because we're going to make them wear masks or not. Is it safe or they're not? Do they need to get vaccinated or not, right? So this will make them want to go. They could get hit now.
Right. Or we're arresting 4-year-olds in Los Angeles. They called the police on a 4-year-old in Los Angeles for not wearing a mask. Like, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Like, these are the things we need to, not fight amongst ourselves, but push against these governments that are telling us how to act and how to, be under control.